Going to tell you about Antonio, a wealthy man who established a chain of movie theaters across the United States. He was a prime example of a self-made man who knew the true value of money and who went from rags to riches. He used to say that money doesn't grow on trees, and he didn't win a lottery or inherited money from his long lost uncle. He knew how, from his own experience, what it was like to live from paycheck to paycheck, and when you can't even afford a bus fare. He was a reasonable spender and never threw money down the drain. He preferred to make investments rather than buying fancy boats or luxury cars. Also, he was a generous philanthropist. He donated a considerable amount of money on education. He used to say that money spent on education is never wasted. He established a charity fund to providing grants and scholarship for students from poor backgrounds. And also he made donations to support immigrants because he himself was an immigrant who came to the United States 60 years ago from a small country in Central America, El Salvador, and as every fresh-off-boat immigrant, he was as poor as a church mouse. He borrowed money from his relatives and they lent him as much as they could. But the cost of living in the United States was higher than in his country. That's why he took a series of low-paying, unskilled manual labor jobs like shop assistant, what else? I forgot about his jobs. So to survive, he took every chance to earn a bit of money. To make ends meet, he swept the floors in the nearest store, and he moonlighted as a lifeguard, as a security guard at the nightclub. These times taught him how to respect people, and he always tipped such people as waiters, taxi drivers, so service industry workers, because he knew what it was like to be in need. Once he was out of debt, he started saving money and depositing it into his bank account. About that time, he met his future wife, and as she was working at the movie theater, he applied for a job there, and he fell in love with cinema, and she fell in love with him, and they got married. Eventually, he was promoted to become a manager there, and in a few years he was running the entire theater. He could afford to buy a car and rent a better apartment for his family. But he always said that money makes money, and he kept stashing money into his bank account, receiving interest. And by the late 80s, he left his job and took out $50,000 from his account where he kept money for a rainy day. And he bought his own cinema, his own movie theater. It was little, but so this is how he became a business owner. But his first venture turned out to be a failure because due to a poor location choice and lack of experience. But it didn't discourage him in slightest, and the next year he enrolled um, in an entrepreneurship course, and in some time he came up with a proper business plan, and found he could find investors, and he opened another movie theater. And in some years he had a chain of movie theaters across he had about 60 movie theaters across 45 states over the country. When he was about 80, he decided to travel all over the world, and he told that he had achieved everything that he was dreaming of. And in some years, in about 2 years, he passed away, and his grandchildren and children inherited his business. And now it's their turn to take the lead.